Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Kimberly Schmidt, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, JMLs24, Unimento M, Iron26, Endless, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, hello guys.
Hello, Jorge.
Morning.
Morning, Matt. How you doing?
It's all good. All good in the hood.
Good to know.
Enjoying the day off.
Yeah, you got a day off. Well, that's nice for some, innit? Hey, 10th.
Yeah.
Check.
Good
Can you hear me,
morning,
10th? Check 1 2. 1 2.
I can hear you.
It's whether or not I can hear you that's the issue. I can hear you, you're good. Well, it's usually a bit more chatty at this time of day, but there we go. Such is life, I suppose.
What about the secret bullets? When are they coming out, Ten? I can't wait.
Yeah, to drop and rejoin, it looks like.
Check 1 2.
Yeah,
Check
we
1 2.
we hear you.
I had to drop and rejoin, like you said.
10th man, I asked, when are we going to get the secret bullets that you got stashed away? I can't wait. I'm in anticipation.
Well, there's certain things that have to happen, and they're happening. It's just going to take a little while, but it all makes sense when that happens. They're already dead. How much more dead do you want them?
Yeah, it's good every now and then. Hit them, and then it's over again. How many times have we said, it's over? And then something else comes. It's over. And it's over worse every time.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's going to be over worse.
Hey, Adam.
The fact that
Hi guys.
Hello.
Mike open.
uh,
What's the temperature?
On what? My CPU?
Yeah, no one gives a shit about outside. They just that CPU.
It's good. It's good. I've just spent an hour stress testing it. I turned up because obviously when you're figuring out a problem, you turn everything down, and then when you find the problem, you then turn it all back up again, which is what I'm in the process of doing. The fun bit is turning it up. So I was turning up the GPU today, And then I spent an hour just before the show stress testing it. So it's actually incredibly hot at the moment, but that's only because it spent an hour at 100% load on both of them just to check it's 100% stable, which it seems to be. Very pleased about that.
Good news.
It's one of them. It's, as I keep saying, dealing with it faulty is a nightmare. But I've learned how it behaves when it's throttling, which is nice and useful, I suppose. Also, I know that, if it goes over 100 degrees sometimes, oh well. The fact that it could hit 115 is I know it'll work. So I don't think I'm going to worry too much if it hits 100 degrees. Because it can hit 100, like I say, 115 is what I saw.
Fingers crossed then. Fingers crossed, mate. Yes.
I honestly believe, like I said yesterday, which is I don't think I'll ever think about it again for another year, at the least. That's when I'll want to probably upgrade something in it, potentially. Probably won't have the money. Or, a kid will pour a drink in it. But between those sorts of things, I don't think I'll ever have to think about it again after I've turned it up. That'll have the usual process of crashing, but it's very different turning something up and seeing it crash to it being on the verge of setting on fire. That's different. Anyway, I'll stop talking about it. Thank you for asking, though. You've cheered me up because I've just spent an hour testing it.
Cool.
Hey, Nathan.
I've
Hey,
still not-
Nathan, what's the
Go on.
temperature?
The hotspot on the CPU is currently 66 degrees.
not 0.6.
Yeah, I just want to make you feel good by asking again.
It doesn't work like that. The sentiment came from Adam, I'm afraid. I can finally start loving the thing.
Adam
That's
has to think about CPUs. Yes.
Well, let's put it this way.
Yesterday,
I just want to finish off. I was like, I can finally start loving the thing. For example, last night at a normal time, like bedtime, I might have a game. So I did, and I played a couple of games before my wife and I went to bed at a normal time, about 11:30, just normal, right? After playing with the computer, having fun with it, not running a game immediately committing suicide so I can just put it on spectate mode and run it to the absolute maximum to see where it crashes, which is typically what I've done for 4 months. Well, that's no fun. Whereas yesterday, I actually enjoyed using it. And when I finished using it, within 5 minutes, every fan had turned off and it was silent. Now, not that it's silent when the fans are running, but they're running and you can see them running. And, it doesn't make any noise, but it's nice to know that it's now absolutely cool 5 minutes after you've run it to, run it hard. Well, not that hard, but run it reasonably hard with a game. Running it hard is running the show. Because running the show uses absolutely everything. iGPU, big cores, little cores, GPU, memory, everything's all running when the show runs. So it's when you run a game on top of that, it's like more than any person would ever demand from a PC. And I want it to be able to do that because that's, potentially 5 years down the line, there'll be a piece of software that I want to use on the show that's incredibly demanding. Not necessarily a game, you just use that to stress it the most because games typically are very powerful. So, I want to be able to use it for 5 years knowing that if any software comes along, I can run it, and if it happens to push the computer to the absolute limit, it'll still work. I want to know that. That's why I'm doing all this. Anyway, that aside, I can start enjoying it because for the first time I've used the other half of the chip. I'm sure I've said this before. The other 8 cores, the little cores, I just didn't have the power. I only could get up to about 118 watts. Well, that wasn't enough to run the second set of cores. So I had half a chip running. Don't get me wrong, with the big main bit of the chip. But the other bit, which is very useful, I'm now using it for recording, which means several things. It doesn't overload every time I start the show. The encoder, the iGPU's only doing the live stream now rather than both. So it's much, much more reliable. It overloads for a split second when you first start it because it's encoding 1440. But other than 5 seconds of overload, it goes to 30% and stays there for the show and it's never stressed in the slightest. Whereas what was happening was it's at 30% for the live stream and about 30 to 35% for the recording or vice versa. And that is enough to, when you first start the process, I press record or press go on the live button, to tip it over the edge and it never recover. So yes, it can do both at 70, 80%, but if it goes over the edge, which it does when you first start it, it would just never recover. That's when, I would be like, oh, the show's shit in the bed. Excuse my French. Well, that's why, because the thing that was encoding it, the iGPU, could do both, It has enough power. It has enough headroom. But for the fact that it overloads initially and couldn't recover if both were running. So that was what was periodically happening every other show, forcing me to restart to get the GPU to be ultra happy before I press both buttons. Now, I've got the other half of the chip unlocked because I can stick another 35 watts into the chip. So an extra 35 watts is enough to run the efficiency cores and encode the recording with the efficiency cores. Brilliant. Problem solved. It's like a different machine. Because it is. It's got another computer inside it now. Anyway. Go ahead, Tim.
No, I was going to say, I forgot what I was going to say. It was a word you used, but I was going to tie it to the second half of the show today you're going to do, where that guy, the teacher in the story yesterday, he had a problem once the kids, because he was going to grade on delivery, not so much the topic, but once the topic caused cognitive dissonance, his chip overloaded. He couldn't help himself. He had to get in there, help his cognitive dissonance, even though, okay, there's a role play. Even though I said I'm only going to grade on delivery, the topic you chose, I'm having a problem with it, so I have to do something. And that was what the show was about, his problem with it. The kids were fine.
But also the narrator, because the narrator's basically cheering him on, going, absolutely right, that he didn't get taught in university how he would have to deal with this sort of a problem. Like, this is a non-problem. It's a problem because, you know, it's like saying to a Christian, they didn't teach you in university what would happen when someone started talking about Buddhism in a course about presentation. It's a non-issue again, but for the Christian, it's like, right, so this triggers you because the presentation that they were given free rein to do on anything isn't covering Christianity. It's like that same Christian saying, oh, you know, he talked about, I don't know, Muhammad. That's the example I gave yesterday. Why didn't he talk about the three wise men? Mm-hmm. That would have been okay. Well, in the same vein, the narrator's like, if the kid had just talked about going to the centre of a sphere Earth, that would have been fine. So it's like, so something totally ludicrous is fine, so long as it's in the context of your religion. Likewise with the Christian, so long as it's the three wise men rather than Muhammad, or something outside of the Bible at all. So, Shiva, yeah? If Shiva's a problem then, well, why? Well, because it's definitely not in the realm of Christianity at all, so therefore this goes from just being about your presentation to you've suddenly crossed the line now. You're like, what? Did he do a good job of presenting the information on Shiva? No? Well, then he fails. Did he? Yeah, he did. He got everyone's attention. Great, then he passes. That's it. Move on. Next kid.
Yeah, but it's interesting that no matter what example you use, well, go on, whoever that is.
Oh, it was a test. That was an acid test to see if you failed as a Christian and went, well, actually, in other words, you know, charge yourself with the same standard as the narrator, but you seemingly passed my arbitrary test.
I'm not you were testing me.
Not exactly. For example, what I'm saying is, I'm saying the standard should be that you, personally, I said Christian and you're the one on the panel, so if you didn't suspect it was directed to you, it was. Yeah? Because you're the Christian on the panel. No other reason.
Okay.
But the standard is, as a Christian, if you set a child a task of doing a presentation on anything they like, and they do a presentation on Shiva, if you then stop the presentation, turn it into a debate, incorporate the kids' opinions from the heckling sidelines, then that's not a reasonable standard. Now, at the end of the process, you didn't go, well, actually, I do object. You know, you just went, does someone else want to talk or something like that?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, see, I've always enjoyed talking to people. It's just internet bad or what? I think my internet's going in and out again.
Yeah, it's fine at this end. You're sounding crystal clear. So if you're not hearing us that clearly, it's probably because you're catching. You are delayed slightly.
Okay. Well, let me finish then before Neil goes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna drop and rejoin again.
No, you sound great. Oh, he's gone. So's Neil. Everyone's gone. Oh no.
No.
Adam,
hold
save
on a
us.
second. What's with the what am I, wood here?
No. My wife loves
You
you,
said
Neil.
10th man is the
Whenever
Christian on
she's
the
listening
panel.
back to the show and she hears somebody like about 27, 30 seconds into a rant or a point, and you just start talking straight through the middle of them and then go, I thought he was finished, or something like that. My wife thinks that's hilarious. She absolutely loves it. Now, not encouraging you to do it, far from it.
I
But
don't
I'm just
realize
saying,
I'm doing it.
what, when you
Like
you
now.
you didn't even do it just now. I'm just saying that there are times that you've done it and my wife happens to be listening to the show and she'll prick her ears up and start chuckling. And I'm like, what? And then she'll point out what you've just done. And, you know, like I say, she thinks it's very funny.
All I wanted to say is you pointed out 10th man as the only Christian on the panel, but that's convicting to me. So that means I'm not recognized as a Christian because of my behavior.
Did I say
perhaps.
only?
So maybe I need to check myself.
I
Thank
didn't
you,
say
Nathan.
only. I said the.
Mic check.
Right. In terms of places
Yeah,
on
I
the
like
show,
the mic
Neil,
check.
right. It's not that you're not Christian or I'm not acknowledging your Christianity when I say you're the Christian. What I mean is, as a stereotyping exercise, we do fit into certain categories, right? Now, unfortunately for you, Neil, you haven't been stereotyped and caricatured by DIDETRH. So, you know, you haven't got...
I get
But
it.
it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? And your stereotype isn't the Christian stereotype. And I'm not saying 10th is a Christian stereotype either. Just for the show, he is in that box. Like it or lump it. You can hate me for saying it and it doesn't matter. It's just a fact. Tough luck. But you're not that stereotype. Even in my example with my wife chuckling at you, you know, that isn't the box you're sitting in. Do you know what I mean? So I wasn't excluding you when I said that. Or
No, that's
anybody
good.
for that matter.
1, 2.
Adam
So if I
included.
was the only one, it'd be. So if I was the only one, it'd be mono, not stereo. So you're in there, Neil. Don't worry. Stereo.
Hello.
As in stereotyping, but no, yes,
When
whatever.
is this guy gonna come out with a new video? This DITRH guy.
Look, it's good
It's
that
been,
you're so
2
humble.
years?
It's good that you're so humble about your Christianity, Neil. That's all that matters, really.
No, sometimes you're missing my point. Sometimes it acts as a checking tool. You understand? It puts you in check. Like, wait a second. Maybe I'm not behaving the way I should be behaving as a Christian, which happened to me once before.
Well, you know, you said it. I didn't say that, Neil. But, you know,
Just once.
that's just something that you could
Just
say to
once.
yourself if you wanted to.
Just once.
Yes, Ted. One time I was acting out of character at work and a guy said something and it like opened my eyes. This is like when I was 1 or 2 years into the Lord.
Well, it's
When you can get to the point that you
happened to me
don't.
many times. I'm just honored to be in the presence.
There'll come a point, Neil, where you don't want to thump the serviceman that's screwed you over. Rather than saying, I wanted to thump him, but as a Christian I didn't. There'll come a time when you'll have serenity either way and you won't want to thump the guy.
Good morning, guys.
What's up, Chocolate? Bring some sanity to the
Good
conversation.
morning, Choco.
They're calling me a demon.
right,
They're
Joe.
calling me a demon and everything.
Yeah,
here,
I don't know
Chocolate.
what I walked into. I don't know what I walked into. That's why I was just like, hey, let me just assess the situation.
Oh, it's just Neil, don't worry. You know.
Neil,
it's
Neil,
being
Neil,
Neil.
co- Neil, Neil
Doing
calls
Neil
on
things.
chocolate. Neil calls on. I can't. Am I over talking again, or what's happening here?
You're just on a slight delay. So
This is weird.
for about 2 or 3 seconds, when you're hearing me stopping and starting and stopping, and then we figure out that it's just the delay, and then all of us will stop and you'll carry on, hopefully.
Okay. Neil was calling on Chocolate to help him, but then Neil started to tell Chocolate what to say. It was funny.
Yeah, I didn't get my script yet this morning.
You gotta go see. You gotta go. Well, wait a second. He's not the boss anymore, anyway. By the way, David Weiss, he is no longer the boss. He's the sauce. And I don't mean sauce of
When-
information. I mean tomato sauce.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with David
When
Weiss.
Nathan-
Don't give David Weiss a hard time, right? Just because he wronged me once, that doesn't mean anything in the big scheme of things, right? Dave Weiss is still a good guy. You know, like I haven't suddenly rescinded everything I've said about David Weiss, have I? Hello?
When Nathan was explaining
Well, if
how,
someone's going to have a vice in
Hold on
their
a
life,
second. I want to address this.
He's
I
a
haven't
piece of
taken it all
crap.
back,
No,
have I?
just-
I haven't carried
No,
on.
it's good.
I haven't carried on hammering nails in or anything, have I? Yeah, the guy fucked me over once. So what? People do that. Doesn't make him a bad person. Yeah, and I genuinely believe he isn't. In sincerity, you know, heat of the annoyed that he's told people not to watch me. In essence, you know, goes away pretty quick. I'm pretty fickle. Just saying.
It's his, listen to me, it's his debates that caused Simon Dan and the other guy, what's his name, Professor Dave, to make videos and make us look like idiots.
Or
Look what this flat earther says.
or from his
And we get
perspective,
lumped in it.
or make adverts for him from his perspective.
well, most people have vices in their lives. One of them just happens to be Dave.
Is this a big issue? Do we need to continue this in the live show? I'm asking
No,
Neil.
don't give him
No.
any more. Don't give
No.
him any more time.
You,
I just say how I feel. Let's do the video.
you didn't.
Wow. Obviously, the Christian
was a
forgiveness
pun.
spirit is there in full
That was a pun.
effect. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Arwin, trying to get in, write my intro to distract me. The 10th Man Rising, Adam Meakin, Neil, who else we got in there? Chocolate Saying, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Yeah. Let's get it on today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to
Just
point,
for your
can I
information.
point something out, Nathan? Like there is a pretty big delay between the actual Google Plus here and the YouTube. Just saying.
You mean the live stream? Yeah, I know. I've put it on
Yeah.
what is called normal latency. So I want to get the best
okay.
quality out of the stream. So rather than having it, to be perfectly ruthless, I don't need instant interaction with my chat, which is the only benefit to having really low latency, which is to say that the chat and the live stream are very much synced together with only a second or two between them. Whereas if there's 5, even 10 seconds between them, it's not the end of the world. I can still read the chat and read out super chats, and half the time they're coming when there's a discussion coming, and I have to rewind the chat to put it up on screen anyway. So I don't need really low latency. So hence I've gone for quality over speed, basically. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I was just checking. Like, is that normal? So
Yeah.
good to know.
Oh, I mean, it's very thoroughly tested, more so that I was testing the PC, but using what I do, which is streaming and recording at the same time on OBS whilst playing a game to stress the computer, that's streaming and recording. So I can see that it's functioning. And yes, it is delayed. But that's because the stream is, I've upped the quality. So it's now 1440p, 60 frames per second, this stream is. So it's a higher resolution. Since I've got the newer computer, it can do it with ease now, since I've opened up the other half of the chip. Anyway, this is boring crap. We're in a live debate show. Hopefully people will join
Sorry.
from the public.
Housekeeping.
Anyway, we haven't actually covered what housekeeping questions will be today. We were going to prepare this in advance. That's lasted 2 days. So I'll just ask whichever ones I fancy, if you don't mind. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Negative.
Space-time funnel.
Being that gas pressure is the force that the gas exerts on the walls of a container, you kind of need that container to have the gas pressure, so that would be problematic.
The space is fake.
Well, their
The
answer,
vacuum of space?
their
Yeah.
answer has always been,
I've got a solution in space-time for you, but
their
it
answer
doesn't
is
work.
always,
You can 10th. Go ahead and then Arwin.
It's dropped again.
Oh, it's 10th dropping. Gosh,
You've gotta
terrifying
give
moment.
10th
I
a
thought my
second,
computer
Owen,
had
you've got
crashed.
really
I was
bad
like,
lag.
oh God, has it died? No, it hasn't. It's all good. It's just 10ths. Rubbish computer. God.
Listen. The evidence is air. Air.
Sorry, evidence of gas pressure without a container.
Yeah, it has to work because we're here on a ball Earth with gas pressure next to it versus an outer space universe. So, because that has to be reality, something has to be able to keep the gas pressure to the ball.
Perfect.
So, a
Perfect.
solution
Stop.
would be
Just stop there.
space-time bending.
Stop. We'll get to that. Perfect. What Arwin just summarised was what I think 2 commenters. One was on QE's comments and one was on mine. And Arwin now. So 3 people who picked up on the reality of what that jape, humorous though it may have been, actually meant in reality. So we're talking about what was the guy's name? Was it Jake?
Wait a second. I did too. The
Hold
other
on,
day
Arwin.
I
Hold
said.
on. Josh. When Josh said air, what Arwin just summarised was what he meant. We've got air, therefore we've got gas pressure without a container, and therefore air existing next to a vacuum. That whole begging the question fallacy presuppositional idea that Arwin just summarised was what was meant when air was the answer to how does gravity hold gas pressure next to Earth in a sky vacuum, which was what was posed to him when he responded air. And like I say, Arwin and 2 of the commenters picked up on that's what he actually was doing.
That's not true. I said it
I
too.
wonder if he
I
realized
said
it.
what? I said, wasn't he doing a Brenda? I said the same thing the other day.
Okay, well, thank you from the token Muslim on the panel.
well, some people said air, some people are full of hot air, but we both said it, yes.
But I wonder if he actually realized, though, that that is what he was doing.
No,
Because
he
that
did.
type of habit, it just goes automatically. It's like, yeah, of course, air. I mean, it's
Arwin,
like
you're
point
Arwin's on fire.
outside, right?
Oh, I
point
love it. I love it. I love it. What a great way to end. Absolutely correct. Arwin's on fire today. So what Arwin's just summarised is whether or not... I keep meaning to call him Jake. What's his bloody name again? Wasn't Jake. What's the guy's... What was my opponent's name? Bloody hell.
Josh.
Didn't you say his name is
My
Josh?
bad. He was so memorable. Josh. What Josh said when he said air was what Arwin initially summarised. But Arwin's also, like I say, on fire because he may or may not have realised that that's what he was doing. But that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But that's also true, Arwin. Yes, he may not even realise that that's what he did because he's not educated enough in his own bloody claim to realise that's what he's doing. But were he to educate himself and try and justify his answer, that's what it would be if he didn't know, which he may well not. But yeah,
Well,
yeah, absolutely, Arwin.
Sorry, after the moment when he said that, he proceeded to kind of like blankly stare a little confused into the distance. So he probably didn't.
Probably not. But you're right on both fronts, which is epic. Right, so
Nah,
as of
you're
which,
wrong.
I've already
Right,
decided what the
right.
second question is going to be because of that. So Arwin's going to get a little bit of free rein here. Yeah, don't take too much poetic license. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Gas pressure sticking to a ball in outer space?
Yeah, that's what I was hinting at. You said that there was an explanation in bending fourth dimensional space time, and then you alluded to a funnel in answer to the first question, which I didn't even grace. But there we go. You go ahead.
Right. Well, there's supposedly a funnel of space-time, which in pseudo-Riemannian force space, like another dimension that is on top of ours. We can't touch it though, but it has to be there because things work the way they do. There's like a funnel, and gases, in my view, kind of seem to function like a fluid, much more like a liquid, sitting down in space-time in that funnel. And that is what in the third dimension keeps the gas to the ball. It's because in space-time curvature, it's basically sitting in a hole.
Okay. Do
I have one. I have one.
address,
Can you
address
ask the
claim?
question again, Nathan?
Yeah, I can either address the claim that he's made or address the more subtle Baldwin aspect of him introducing the third dimension, that's physicality, into his description of fourth dimensional bending space-time. Which should I address, I ask myself? Or neither? Do neither, let's be honest.
You don't have to. I mean, I know there's no it's resting
that's
on the
stuttering,
assumption
right? That's
of the way
stuttering.
it has to be.
Do you hear
right?
that?
I mean,
right. That
the-
stuttering
it's-
from Arwin is Arwin caught. Right. He knows that I've immediately collared what he tried to do there. So subtle. It was so subtle. I've got to take your hat off to you, Arwin. But your stammering little exercise that you've done then tells me I was correct in the sandwiching in three-dimensional reality to your explanation, right? That's the thing I'm definitely going to focus on now.
Well, since Eric Valinda
Hold on,
said
10th.
gravity,
Hold on, I've got him on the hook here. Go ahead, Arwin.
Now, the point is that why I made that connection with 3D reality is because, well, the whole pseudo-Riemannian force space solution was based on the assumption of the scenario that Earth is the way it is presumed to be, a ball in space with gas next to it. So the solution was found in pseudo-Riemannian force space that then points at the scenario being the way it is on Earth.
Gotcha.
That's kind of how it works
No,
internally.
I got you. No, it's very eloquent and very actually accurate in terms of what's going on here, and it's also Weasley if you slip it in the way you did. But can I just ask one question before we do address that? Right, was the other bit with funnels and that's just a shape for gravitational wells in bending force space, right? Was all that just a subterfuge so you could drop in the 3D bit?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's a core mechanism of how.
No, I know. I realize
the
it's relevant.
answer is in pseudo-Riemannian force space, and the funnel, right? The well, the gravity well is the solution.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's not relevant to a heliocentric claim. I'm just saying, did you drop in that spurious bit of heliocentric truth, if you want to call it that, to sway me away from the fact that the main point that Arwin subtly dropped in was that and it's just eloquently, it's lowered my blood pressure greatly. Arwin, I love you when you're like this. Right, it's just eloquently detailed how the trick works. So we've got a conceptual fourth dimensional medium that only exists in mathematics that was developed by Einstein, and it can explain how gas sticks to a ball, right? Gravitational wells or whatever, funnels, whatever, right? Yes, true,
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, but that's not relevant to our three-dimensional physical world that we live in. That's a description in a fourth dimensional world that we don't live in. So to say I've used the fourth dimensional world we don't live in to explain this problem in a three-dimensional world we also don't live in, that would be a spherical one, isn't really a great explanation, but well worthy of Arwin going through it in this way. Much, much less stressful. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I
for
have
letting
a
me roll that
question.
out.
Go ahead, Chocolate. Actually, no, 10th, then Chocolate.
actually, the guy in Discord, then me, then Chocolate.
Oh, who is the guy in Discord that wanted to say something? I'm really sorry.
Yeah,
Said he
me.
wanted
Go
to
ahead,
ask the question.
Jorge.
Yeah, the question on the table: scientific evidence for gravity, atmospheric pressure.
Just to beg in the question,
That's
fallacy.
what I said.
So,
Yes.
it's just begging the question, fellas. If you say atmospheric
Atmospheric pressure.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
begging the question, fellas.
We all know
Sphere-shaped air.
without the container. We all know without the container there can be no pressure. So yeah, gravity.
Yeah, but that's inclusive of the first thing that you claimed, which was an oxymoron, sphere-shaped air. Atmosphere, yeah, that's what they'll describe their refraction in, and their gas pressure without a container in, and their gravity in. It's all taking place in sphere-shaped air. Atmo, that's air. Sphere, a shape. Their shape that they're presupposing. Well, we haven't got sphere-shaped air. That's an oxymoron. Air doesn't take the shape of a sphere arbitrarily in a sky vacuum. Far from it, it would disperse into it. It takes the shape of whatever containment it's got.
You gotta.
But if I may, look, sorry, Tenth, keep it short. But technically, he is correct though, because atmosphere and gravity both exist in the ball 3D reality. So in there, that is exactly what they do. But it doesn't have to do with the actual 3D reality, though.
No, that's not strictly true. It might have been true 108 years ago, but no, that's not true. There's just an empty void in the place of an explanation for a second law of thermodynamics violation now, currently, because you can't use pseudo-Riemannian force space Einsteinian non-force gravity to hold gas pressure to a sphere Earth in a vacuum. There is no way of doing it. The best you've got is what you did, Arwin. Let's be honest. That is as good as it gets, isn't it? Saying I can explain it in 4D and then juxtapose that with 3D? Well, no. That's physical versus non-physical conceptual.
Yeah, but if it's explained really well and people understand your reasoning, then they kind of tend to lose a little bit of the track of the entire original premise of the point.
No,
so they
good
accept.
Point. No, perfectly reasonable. Arwin's on fire. Right, so what Arwin's saying is, once you get to the point that you don't realise there's a superimposition of 3D reality onto a conceptual fourth-dimensional bending space-time to hold gas pressure without a container in this example, then it doesn't matter, because then that exists in your mind's eye. In other words, the space is still real. It doesn't matter that it isn't. It only ever existed in your mind's eye, and so long as that's maintained, which is the entire point of the brainwashing and ridicule against flat Earth, then it's maintained. In other words, you still believe in space. Oh, right. Fourth dimensional bending reified space-time that isn't a force holds gas pressure here. All right, okay, I'll be on with my day knowing space is real. So yeah, you're right, Arwin.
Yeah, well summarized.
All right, so what he said there is atmospheric pressure, and obviously you need a container for pressure. So they say, well, it's gravity. Now they say, obviously the story has to change because gravity doesn't exist. Gravity is not a force. So now it's 4D space. So the storyline keeps changing because they need to have an open system next to gas pressure in order to get their rockets out and go travel the light years in the future away from Earth and see what they can discover. But you can't have gas pressure without containment, so there's no way of getting out because the gas would get out just like the spaceship and would all be dead. So the story crumbles.
You say we need to have an open system?
NASA?
Well, that's a little crazy. Why did my boy Bill Nye tell us we live in a closed system? That would be different.
Yeah, but it's a pseudo-Riemannian force space. It's closed.
Right? Well, when the story changes as much as their story must, then you know it's not based on any truth or evidence. So if one of them says we're closed, the other one says, well, can you open the hatch so we get the spaceship out so we could be open for a little while? I mean, come on.
Well, like in Spaceballs.
Whatever. I mean, the whole point is their story keeps changing, but gas pressure without containment is impossible. That story never changes.
Okay, well, we'll continue with a few more housekeeping questions tomorrow, and hopefully this pattern of doing housekeeping a couple at a time means that they're a bit more, fresh each time the show starts, and indeed we don't just drag out housekeeping for 50 minutes every show, and then have 5 to do other stuff. Anyway, we're going to carry on with this. So we've covered yesterday, this Gen Z kid thinks Earth is actually flat, and Connor Pugs, whose video I'm going to share now with the live audience. So go and check him out, subscribe if you enjoy his content. In spite of the fact that we obviously disagree with his views and prejudice towards this flat Earth kid he's describing in his story, doesn't mean he's not a good YouTuber. In fact, quite the contrary. I very much approve of the way he has narrated this story In fact, it takes a lot of skill, probably a skill that I will never acquire. I couldn't do what he has done. My hat is off to you as a YouTuber. That's why you've got loads of subs. Good for you. So you might enjoy his content. Go and check him out if you want to. But his name's Connor Pugs. Anyway, we've got about halfway through yesterday covering this, and I thought it was gold in terms of not only his narration, which was great because it meant it was enough meat on the bone for us to react to without actually seeing what he's talking about, which is fine because of his skill as a YouTuber. Again, enough commendation for this guy. Check him out. But we'll go through the other half now, if that's all good with everyone on the panel. And yeah, feel free to chime in. I went off on a bit of a rant because it's to do with teachers and teaching with Flat Earth in the subject, which is probably the single most thing that boiled my blood in a heartbeat. But there we go. So maybe you guys can do a bit more input this time to keep my blood pressure down, just for the sake of my own sanity. So we'll crack on from roughly halfway, and if we have covered this a little bit, doesn't matter if there's a bit of overlap.
No, but also I don't feel like picking a fight with you over if the earth is round or flat, bro. Like, that's just not how I want to spend my, like, Friday or Saturday afternoon. I just have different things I wanted, like, I don't know. I just value my time enough that I know that, like, having that type of conversation is just not going to be productive at all.
So we did cover this yesterday, and it's ironic because in the pre-show we had Neil as an example saying, you know, when you're I'm only pulling his leg, but, you know, if you were a good Christian, you wouldn't think about thumping the bad serviceman and just restrain yourself because you are a Christian. You wouldn't have such evil thoughts, right? Well, in the same way, when this guy's saying about a heckler to a presentation that started disagreeing and debating with the kid's presentation, that the kid's views are basically acceptable. And when it's described by him, which is why I'm hesitant to say this, as the kid not wanting to have a fight with him, it's similar to the context of Neil in the pre-show. That is to say, why are you considering this quickly escalating into a fight and telling the opponent, when he's not an opponent, he's just someone making a presentation that you're debating with and heckling, that you don't want to have a fight with him? That's only according to the narrator, though. So, you know, any other comments? I know we already covered this yesterday.
I just would ask why you would address a point and say, I know it's not going to be productive. How do you know that? Only because you know you've got your own obstruction that's going to stop it being productive.
Yeah, it's not going to be productive for me because I'm going to put a full stop to it right immediately. Yeah. Yes, good point, Adam.
I think yesterday you were very fair in saying, what if he wanted to do his report on Narnia, or which is a metaphor, or something else? Would the teacher in the story, as the narrator is sharing, reacted the same way? But it just happened to be about flat Earth, and it did something to the teacher in the story that we're reading or hearing. So if it was any other subject, would he have reacted the same way? Or is it just this one because he's got religious belief in heliocentrism?
We have the answer. And the narrator gave us the answer to that. So according to the narrator, the teacher was delivered a story about traveling to Hawaii, and I can't remember what the other story was delivered. And no, there was no heckling. We weren't told that the other kids were bored and looking at their phones, but we weren't told that they weren't either, you know, so we don't really know either way. But he did also mention that the kids with this specific teacher weren't paying enough attention to the point where they're having to be told off because they're Gen Z kids who are on their phones looking at TikTok because they're all evil and learning about flat Earth on it. Apart from the kid that's heckling, he's a good kid.
But the contrast is this presentation on flat Earth, everyone was attentive, it seems like, including the teacher, to disrupt his own rules of delivery is the only thing you're going to be graded on. So, as you said yesterday, this was the best, and he should have got AAA, because when you do a presentation audibly, and you can have everyone's attention, and even the teacher has to stop you because he's got cog dis, that's a great presentation.
So I'm just not gonna have it, bro. Yeah, so anyways, eventually the Gen Z kid ends his presentation, and okay, so at this point, half the class is like super confused and they just don't know how to feel about this whole thing. And then
again, you know, such a good presentation that everybody's thinking about how it makes them feel. Definitely not looking at their phones then.
The other half of the class like bursts out into applause. Some kids literally stand up, like, you know, when something is so good, you have to stand up and give it a standing ovation. Like, some kids in the class were literally giving this kid a standard ovation, or a standing ovation, standard deviation. They're getting...
Wow. I mean, we didn't get to this part of the story, so this is the first new bit. Oh, wow. So, not only are they not looking at their phones, not only are they all engaged, 100% of them according to this guy, 50% of them are on their feet cheering him on. They're definitely not looking at his phone because they're clapping, right? So they're not holding their phones. Well, maybe they are. Maybe they're
Sounds like you hit it out of the park to me.
Yeah, exactly, Neil. This is an issue, though. It needs debating about. They didn't teach you in university how to deal with a kid doing really well at the task he's set when he challenges your religious belief. You just don't know how to cope with that when you're a new teacher.
Giving him a standard deviation, giving him a standing ovation for saying that the earth is flat, because I don't even know, bro. I think they were just also Gen Z kids.
Of course, they also fit into the stereotype. The 50% that were giving him a standing ovation, they were all Gen Z kids. The 50% that disagreed with him and heckled, they're the good children, the non-Gen Z ones.
Yeah, so, you know, the thing is, Brian...
How does that actually work in a classroom where they're all the same class age? Anybody?
Well, if you're a flat earther, then they can basically discriminate against you in whatever form they like, right? Or just like if you were pro-Trumper or something.
Gotcha. So they're all Gen Z
or
kids.
you don't, and then you can't do that. Now you're just one of the guys.
Gotcha. So what he's got is a typical. All of them are Gen Z kids. So they're all little shits, but a couple of them aren't. I don't know why, but I don't want them to be in the stereotyping fallacy because they're supporting my cause in this regard. So he's just cherry picking whichever ones he wants. Okay, fine.
The teacher is just kind of confused by this reaction because he kind of expected like laughter or like awkward silence. He did not expect a actual standing ovation from people in the audience. Like, that was definitely not one of the things he was expecting to see. So
was he not? Was he not doing? You're telling me that whilst assessing the child's presentation skills, he wasn't expecting that people would be so engaged that they would applaud the presentation? That seems like something that was in the realms of possibility. Doesn't sound like a great teacher if he didn't think that maybe one of the kids will give such a good presentation that everyone around them will not only put down their phones and pay attention, they'll cheer at the end of it. That didn't cross his mind. No, but maybe whether or not his religious belief was going to be challenged did cross his mind, but whether or not the presentation was so good it got applause didn't.
I think the information nowadays is much more than it was when I was in school. When I was in school, after a certain class, I recall many times, you know, I don't know. I don't agree with that thing that the teacher said. And only one or two people might chime in. Now, because there's alternative things that kids go to learn, this one message through the school system isn't the only message they're hearing. So this whole address of Gen Z kids is really could be done in these kids nowadays in classroom have other means of getting information, not just the teacher in the classroom. So they're asking questions. And so it's a different thing than when I was at school, when it was the only information coming was the teacher.
How the hell does the narrator know that the standing ovation came not as a result of the information delivered, but a result of the high standard and quality of engagement from the presenter? In other words, they're applauding how bloody well he'd done at the task. How does he know that they were all applauding his notions about flat Earth? He doesn't, but he's assuming that's the case. Now, you notice how I'm putting it in the negative for us as flat Earthers. They aren't necessarily agreeing with the kid because they applauded. They might have just really enjoyed the presentation. And they're just not brainwashed to start tutting and waving their fingers at the end of a good presentation. They don't care either way. Maybe all of the class still believe they're on a ball, but they thought it was really good, so they clapped. But it still needs taken to one side because they all clapped because they were on your side, or 50% of them were on your side with your presentation. That's a problem.
Well, I think when he said 50% had perplexed facial, you know, that's the teacher. The teacher associates with that 50%. The other 50% were with the kid, and they were excited and they stood up. So the half the class that stayed down is like the teacher. What? Is he serious? I mean, are you kidding me?
Wait till it's whole classes that are cheering and telling the teacher how wrong they are.
Yeah, damn
Wait
right.
till that's happening.
Yeah,
Hell
damn
yeah.
right. Only 50%. Exactly.
So Brian was a little, taken aback by this. He's just like, oh, okay, okay. So Brian kind of speaks up and says, hey, Gen Z kid, that was a really good presentation. You will be receiving full marks for your grade because I'm grading you on how you presented. However,
Wow, my blood pressure goes down a little bit, at the very least. Given that he did absolutely without question fulfill the assignment, the kid got a good mark. Thank God.
I do have to ask, was that...
Sorry, what's that? However? Why is there a however? Was there something else in the task that he missed? Let's see.
the whole Earth being flat presentation.
So this isn't about the task. Why is this critique coming? Wouldn't have been a critique if it was about travelling to the centre of Earth, even though there's no evidence of a molten iron core and you can't physically do that. There's ground in the way. Yeah? So that would have been okay, moving on to the next kid. This, on the other hand, you did really well at the assignment. However, you challenged my religious faith. That's not acceptable.
Was that satirical? I mean, it was a genuine question.
Were you having a laugh? What does it matter? Did the criteria have non-satirical nature in or not? No, it didn't. Not according to this narrator, at least.
And I think the teacher was... part of him was hoping. I don't think the teacher actually believed.
So now we're on to the hopes and desires of the teacher. That's what this is really about. I'm glad you summarised it immediately. Yes, and now we're on to the nitty-gritty of what this is really about. The teacher's got a problem. That's what this is really about. He's got to suddenly assess how he thinks and feels about the content of the presentation that could have been literally anything. Go on,
but this has been from the beginning. Like from what I remember at the beginning of this yesterday, every other sentence is, well, I feel that I have this feeling. Like, it's all about his feelings. And now he seems to be divining the thoughts of the teacher. Because unless the teacher is saying all this stuff, where is he getting it from? Is he just projecting? Like, I don't get it.
It was satirical. I think the teacher was hoping that it was satirical, bro. Hoping that, like, the Gen Z kid was actually just...
Yeah, we get that too. Yeah, you know what we say? When they get angry when we point out, nah, we're not joking when we absolutely annihilate the notion of being on a sphere. We're not joking about that. When they get all angry, we tell them to share their pain. Because that's what this really is. Brian assessed it beautifully yesterday. That's his pain. And what's he doing with that pain? Sharing it with the child that just did really well? That seems very unreasonable. And you're claiming this kid's gaslighting him? Seems very unreasonable. I think you should learn to deal with your pain better, narrator and teacher by third person.
Is a master comedian and was able to just...
Go ahead.
The term he's described there, satire, is he being satirical? Okay. Is that a hope of the teacher? So that I think reality is dawning that he is actually going to have to deal with this topic, though. Half of the class recognise this already. So you can see why the teacher's not. It's not just against his religious viewpoint of the world. It's now going to be contradictory. Half the class have got knowledge of information that's going to be contradictory to what's going to be taught. You can see why it's going to be a problem, because it's not just like a personal challenge. It's an authority challenge that he can probably see coming ahead in the curriculum he's about to teach. So if these kids have got this, when we get to orbits and gas pressures, they're going to have these answers because they're Gen Z kids. And as much as they're trying to place Gen Z as some kind of ad hom, they're actually the most literate with regards to information technology, finding out information than any other generation since. And that, I think, is where the Gen Z comes in. These people are self-researched. This has not come from the mainstream, this challenging bit of satire. It's come from them going out there and finding out things for themselves. So I see it as a challenge to his authority as well as within the classroom, or it's going to be.
You mean any generation that preceded them, not any generation since, right?
Sorry?
You said any generation since?
Sorry, yeah, well, they are. Sorry, that preceded, yeah, sorry.
Well, we live in a hell of a time now, right? Where now the teacher doesn't necessarily have to be the sole authority. Any of these kids could go on their phone and find a plethora of information on their own. They no longer require a teacher. That's why they're going to get nervous.
That's why I said authority. It's not just his religious. His authority's gone right now because he was going to teach this stuff. And here's somebody that's saying no. With, I would guess, probably correctly, a very well-reasoned argument if the class give him a round of applause afterwards.
Well, he identified the debunked notion of gas pressure being attracted to Earth, as discussed earlier, in a summary by saying that it was wrong. He said Newtonian gravity is wrong. Well, that's absolutely 100% correct. So even though he's a child, or she, I don't know which, put that across, that's correct. Not only is it correct, the teacher knows it's correct. So in terms of argumentation, it might not be the case that suddenly governments are going to topple and there's a big conspiracy, which was what was alluded that the child had said or stated as a result, and gone on to question the motivations, which is very childlike in my humble opinion. Because who cares what the motivations are? What he stated about is, if you want to call it that, it was a presentation, but nevertheless we're critiquing him on his argumentation. He said that Newton was wrong. That's it, that's correct. And the teacher damn well knows it too.
Pull off such a ridiculous presentation with a straight face, making it look like he actually believed it, when in actuality, he just actually believed that stuff, bro. Yeah, so sure enough, the Gen Z kid's like, no, like, did it sound like it was a joke?
Yeah, that's almost offensive to the child in his presentation. That's downright offensive. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, any other topic that's delivered with sincerity and so wow, that is really very, very rude. Was that a joke? He's just outlined his worldview. If anything, it's an attack on his religious beliefs. Is that right? You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. Suddenly, I envisage my child being in the same position, right? And the people, the general populace, which the narrator represents, is telling his audience that it's perfectly acceptable to have some kid on the sidelines heckle and say, no, he sits outside of my Gen Z stereotype because he's a normal kid with his normal heckling and his normal objections to something he should be shutting up about and just listening, paying attention as he was, paying too much attention to the point where he wants to interject. But that's a normal behaviour. In other words, the persecution of, if you want to call it, as Adam just did, this kid's religious belief, if you wanted to phrase it in that manner. I don't like it phrased that way, but we will, right? Then what? The kids on the sideline that disagree with him suddenly propped up and agreed with when the teacher sat in fear that the contradictory nonsense about gravity he has been taught at university might come to a head when he's actually put it to the children and they might challenge his authority on it. Yeah, these are the concerns of fundamentalist religious zealots, not the concern of the child that's just done the presentation. Moreover, the child shouldn't have to concern himself with hecklers that disagree, because there's nothing to agree or disagree with in a presentation like this. Yeah? Well, that's what I would fear for my child. Suddenly all the kids around him after the class are going to be ganged up on because the teacher agreed with the detractor when it wasn't a bloody debate.
Did I hear you correct? You said the teacher said, was this a joke? He asked the kid after that presentation if it was a joke?
Exactly. When it didn't make any difference, again, like the other things I pointed out weren't relevant to the topic and how the topic was covered. All that was relevant was how well the presentation was done. It wouldn't have mattered, according to the narrator, if it had been to the centre of Earth, which you cannot do. Well, if you're going to describe going to the centre of Earth and you do it in all sincerity, you say, I'm going to do it with the drill rigs like we used in Armageddon, and I'm going to negate the heat with a really complicated air conditioning system. Now, obviously, that's nonsense fantasy. But after the presentation, if it had everybody gripped and on the edge of their seats and going, excuse me, sir, because they're not quote-unquote normal kids. They go, excuse me, would it be possible for me to ask a question of the presenter. I know it's out of sorts and it's not part of what we'd normally do here, but I'm really intrigued. Teacher says, no, we haven't got time. You might, you know, if we've got time at the end, we might come back to something. We've got other children to look at who do a similar presentation. Hopefully they'll grip you as much as the last kid. Moving on, distinction for him. No, that's not what's going to happen here, though, is it? Far from it.
I thought Adam's comment was based on the teacher's religious belief that he had a problem with, not the kids.
No, I was struggling to quantify it, but I don't disagree with Nathan's objection. Poorly worded. But it is fundamentally a worldview. So to ridicule it as opposed to address it, and I see, I don't think it's, I think it's fear. Half the class know this. This teacher's in a spot. Please let it be ridicule. Please be you're being satirical. Otherwise, these are things I'm going to have to deal with. Half my class clearly know more about it. They've applauded him. This is the reality of what this description of these presentations. This is the reality in the classrooms. Is half the kids know about flat Earth, and they're prepared now to talk. Imagine being a kid, Nate. If I go back to school, if you had something on a teacher, yeah, oh, you'd milk it. Our teacher looked like Michael Barrymore, so we just do, you know, little jokes here and there. If you actually had a piece of information like gas pressure without a container in the heliocentric model, you would be taking your teachers apart with fun. Do you know what I mean?
You're right on it, Adam. You're right on it.
So that, like, it, you really see the picture of what's going on. Sorry for my phone ringing. Because this whole, it's just so convenient that this whole thing shut down at a time when Flat Earth was surging. So while this shutdown happened and everybody was, you know, occupied with that, a lot of rhetoric and a lot of, you know, mental control befell the people, because the internet taught you, well, now you can't say whatever you want because we're just going to take your content down. We're going to take your channel or your group, or we're just going to block your account and stop you from being social with and for some generations, like, the internet is the only way to be social with all your friends. So it's like, if you're disrupting because I remember my stepson talking about how, like, half the class was debating gravity when it came up. And it's like, if the school system was put in place in 902 by you know who, early 1900s by you know who, specifically for a specific kind of individual to live a specific kind of lifestyle over a number of years and get benefits for his hard work and his time or all of that stuff, you can't have that system being screwed with, and the people that are training you to be members of this society, if they don't respect that trainer, that can't happen.
Right. But because heliocentrism is not recognised as a religion, and in some ways it's superimposed onto the reality of the Earth being a naturally flat plane, you end up with a situation where, if it was put into a different context, so the kid had made a presentation on Shiva being the one true God, and at the end of the presentation the teacher turned around to him and said, "Are you joking? That was a joke, right? You are just taking the piss, right?" How on earth would that be in any way acceptable to a modern society that accepts religious faith? I'm not suggesting that flat Earth's a religious faith. Quite the contrary, I'm saying it's true about heliocentrism. That's the religion. But the point is that for any other faith, as opposed to heliocentrism, where you worship the sky god Helios, the sun, yeah, and think you move around it, that's your religion. Well, you're entitled to your belief. But for someone to come along and say, no, we don't move around the sun, Shiva or Ganesh is the one true God. You know, we don't move around the sun, we move around Ganesh. And they genuinely put that forth as their presentation just because they had a good knowledge on it, because they were taught it by their parents for whatever reason. Their religion in that country happened to be one that worshipped Ganesh, right? Well, as a principle, the very fact that the teacher can turn around at the end and think it's reasonable to ask the kid if they're serious is just so unreasonable, I feel. You know, and that's because of the one world religion that we have. That's heliocentrism.
Yeah, but if it was any other subject, it would be considered okay because it would be like it would be considered like a critical thinking project, right? So bringing new ideas to the class, and that's okay because it's not this particular subject where we've all been indoctrinated and brainwashed and we have to accept it. It would be a completely different story.
And no, it did not sound like it was a joke, besides the fact that what he was saying was ridiculous. Like, he presented it.
So even though it didn't sound like it was a joke, the question was raised because to you it was ridiculous. So Ganesh, ridiculous, therefore asked the kid if it's a joke, even though it was clearly obvious that he'd researched it and knew what he was talking about, because it was his faith. But you still, in spite of it not seeming like it was a joke, asked if it was a joke, just to insult the kid.
It as if it was just like, oh, him presenting facts about ancient Egypt, right? When in reality, he was presenting
facts about ancient Egypt? That's a good one. I wonder how much primary source research Connor Pugs has done on ancient Egypt. I digress.
Facts,
Did somebody just chuckle? Who was that from Discord chuckling? Nobody's going to own up.
Some quotations about how the earth is actually flat, which is just...
I wasn't going to tell you off, by the way. I was just going to say, well, you're chuckling at my remark about ancient Egypt, but nobody's taken responsibility for that. Fine.
Not this...
Oh, got a super chat. Thank you very much indeed to What Shape is the World, who has joined as a member. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it.
Same thing. Yeah, so anyways, Brian is like, all right, well, I kind of feel obligated to set the record straight here. Guys, just so you know, there's no good evidence that the earth is flat, and in fact, all the evidence points, to the contrary. And he looks at the Gen Z kid like, I'm just saying...
Well, was that it? So that sounds like what we would describe as a hand-wave dismissal followed by a baseless assertion. Am I correct in that identification?
Exactly.
So hand-wave dismissal. No, there's no evidence that proves Earth's flat. Because you've researched it and debunked all of the claims that are in existence about the Earth being flat, or celestial navigation's been... You haven't done any of that. It's called a hand-wave dismissal. And then you've made a baseless assertion. All of the evidence points towards it being a sphere, as evidenced by nothing. He just looks at the Gen Z kid after his hand-wave dismissal and baseless assertion. Go ahead.
How about dealing with the Newtonian thing?
Fallacy.
Sorry, Chocolate.
Yeah, I never used that term, so I wanted to use it because it's kind of cool. Baseless assertion fallacy. Ipsy Dixit.
I was just going to say, how about he deals with the Newtonian debunking? Why didn't he step into that?
Good point. I forgot
he
about
just
that.
hand-waved everything away?
Yeah, that'll get my blood boiling if I focus on that too much, Neil. Yeah, the teacher knows damn well that one of the points made and raised by the child, specifically detailed by this narrator, is correct. There is no Newtonian gravity. It was superseded 108 years ago by Einsteinian fourth-dimensional space-time bending, something that he will have been taught in university. Something he contradictorily, if that's the word, will be teaching to the children. That's 108-year out-of-date rhetoric about gravity being a force when it isn't. The child raised that. So in spite of that, the child was told there's no evidence. Oh, what about the evidence that was actually raised if this is now going to turn into a debate, which it clearly is? They've hand-waved a point in the presentation that's not a debate, and then looked at the kid, what, for a response to your debate that you've entered in with this child?
Saying this guy, I feel like I need to, your grade's still going to be good, even though I disagree with you about like the content, you'll get full points for, your presentation, which I think is fair, especially since the presentation's not based on like the information presented. Like, for all you know.
Yeah, it was. Specifically, not allowed to be non sequitur. has to be researched, wasn't allowed to be put together in the toilet before the class. So I think you should pay a bit more attention to your own bloody words, mate, as you were the one who detailed specifically what the actual task was. Dick.
No, little Johnny's presentation about his trip to Hawaii might be completely false. Like maybe he never went to Hawaii. Maybe he went to Antarctica and ate his grandmother and he just doesn't want to say that. So instead he makes up a fake trip to Hawaii. Like there's no way to verify that information. So grading it just not based on the information would make no sense. And especially since...
So it's not relevant at all. So you've confirmed every word we've said, which is to say that this discussion most certainly, and even by the standards of the teacher, should not be taking place.
Not the principal, the teacher said, hey guys, like it's just on how you present it. So, but the teacher's like, look guys, I need you to know that the earth is actually not flat.
The teacher needs them to know this. Why? Why does the teacher need them to know this? It wasn't in the syllabus. It wasn't part of the assignment. So that it's just the teacher's own desire to force his faith onto the children unnecessarily. That's what it actually is. Let's be clear. I'm going to say this again. I didn't say it with enough vigour last time. This is specifically why I don't put my kids in the hands of bastards like this, who decides that he's going to superimpose his religious faith onto my child after they've done really well and enter into a debate encouraging others to basically bully them afterwards. That's what's happening here. Yeah, I don't want my kids subject to that shit. This teacher, scumbag, wanker, how dare you? Move on to the next kid and give him a distinction. Don't feel that you have to address something that contravenes your religious faith in a ball earth. You didn't have to do that. It wasn't on the syllabus. It wasn't part of the assignment. Just you fulfilling your desire with someone else's child. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that.
Flat and the gravity is real.
Really? Gravity's real? What? The way it was taught in that very class by that very teacher when he was taught something completely contradictory in university? Au contraire. If only you had a vague notion of this subject, Connor Pugs. Because then, like me, you would understand that the teachers are lying shit when he decided to challenge him on the very thing he knew he was correct about in this case. Bending pseudo-force space-time dimensions, that's gravity, currently, as opposed to the force the very same teacher will lie to the children about, and is about to offer up a rebuttal to a non-debate with that lie. Yeah, that teacher's scum. No two ways about it now.
Yep.
And that's when the Gen Z kid's like, well, I strongly disagree, and I have a lot of people who agree with me on that.
Well, he said it in the presentation, Newtonian gravity specifically. Incorrect, not true. Out of date by 108 years, superseded by fourth dimensional space-time. So he's reiterating the point he was right about, and the teacher damn well knows it, because he was taught it by an educator at university to be in this position. So is the teacher going to double down on his fucking lie? Let's see.
This. And almost like in unison, almost like this was planned. I don't know how this would be planned, but almost as if this was planned. All these kids stand up and all say in unison, like, we agree that the earth is flat. I don't know if they all said it in unison like that, but they basically all said, we agree with him. Yeah, he's right. The earth.
Yeah, I'd have been annoyed. Even though it was a presentation and not a debate. Yes, on the one hand, you can look at that and go, oh, wow, it's great to see all the other kids support. Yeah, okay, they were going to give that anyway by the sounds of things. But ultimately, this is the crescendo of this discussion now turned into debate, formerly a presentation. Because the teacher knows he's wrong, and he's just lied to the kid at this point. Fortunately, his ass has been saved by his opponent's side, that's the kid's side, even though it's not a bloody debate, because they've all stood up and cheered. At the point where the teacher said, nah, you're wrong about this gravity, it's real. What? Real? What's real about a bending concept in mathematics? There's nothing physical about it at all. Zero is real about gravity. It's a conceptual medium being bent, fourth dimensional. Definitely not real. So at this point, the teacher's had to lie to overcome his fear and his loss of power with a bunch of children and superimpose his religion onto them. It's a disgrace. It's disgusting.
Earth is actually
But
flat.
earlier, Nate, I was thinking, I said, maybe half the kids know about it. But thinking about it, they're not. They smelt the weakness in the teacher and they're trolling him. They will now be flat earthers because they see the reaction in the teacher. Yeah.
Oh, good point. Good point. Yeah,
That's a good point.
Kids are good at trolling, especially when it's teachable to them.
As soon as you said it, even today, my 3-year-old's got a swimming teacher that likes her. So does she do well in that class? Oh, God, no. No, she does whatever she wants to do. And it doesn't matter if the teacher tells her off, because he's never going to tell her off in a way that she gives a crap about, because she knows damn well she's got him wrapped around her finger. So she does what she likes in the swimming class. And he came up to me afterwards and told me, yeah, I'm going to have to take her out of the pool again when she's naughty. I'm like, didn't work last time. What do you want? Yeah, I have to deal with that all day. Yeah, because they can sniff weakness. How do you think they are when they're 10 or 11? Yeah, they're 10 times worse. Then they get like me. Then they become adults and they can hear it in the quiver in their voices. The kids aren't as dumb as they look.
Rebellious nature that kids have. And that's why it's going to be problematic in this current time that we're in, where all these kids are running around with a phone and Google and all types of stuff that they can look up their own information and challenge the person who's supposed to be in authority in the classroom. Because when I was a kid and I asked how's water sticking to the outside of a wall, I was just told, well, that's what it is. And
we said this a couple of years ago. There was a tipping point. It was a couple of years ago. It was probably around the time of the Black Swan, actually, that we said, that's it. The floodgates have broken. It's not a question of, will this catch on, when everyone is wishfully thinking that the flat earth thing is going to die. It's the crappiest conspiracy. Wake up and smell the coffee. You've been telling me that the subject's dying for 7 or 8 years. That's not a subject that's dying. And meanwhile, we're now covering the fact that half a classroom of kids agree with the presentation on flat earth to the point where it's the only thing that's actually engaged the kids all day by the basis of this narration, because they're all looking at the bloody phones, not paying attention to this crap teacher. Yeah, who's a liar. So based on that, I'm going to say, yeah, the floodgates broke a couple of years ago, and now there's no going back from it. You know, the cat's out of the bag and it isn't going back in again. Maybe it was released a little bit to keep the ridicule up, and it got a bit out of control, a bit quick to the point that Congress had to get involved. But it was already too late. Now, we already knew that. We said it 2 years ago. Go and have a listen. Floodgates broke. That's it. The levee's smashed, and that's it. The water's coming in whether you like it or not. Earth's flat.
Well, glad just caught up. I've been saying it for the longest.
Got about 5 minutes left on the live show, so we'll do a little bit more on Connor Pugs. I will just share his link again, because I do want to encourage other people who make adverts about me in the negative to do the same. You know, there's no point in me moaning about it. I mean, I do this anyway, and everyone who watches the show knows damn well that I always share the links to the people who cover. But, you know, I'm going to point out the fact that I am actually sharing this guy's link.
Basically all this nonsense. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment Earth down below. Earth will be the secret word of the day, so go in the comment section and comment Earth. And also, while you're in the comment section, make sure to check out the pinned comment on the video, as there are 2 links in the pinned comment. The first link is to my Spotify page, in which I upload all these stories as podcasts, and it actually helps me out if you listen on there as well. So if you like that platform, I have podcasts on there. And also a link to my second channel, which I tell stories from Reddit. And recently, there's been an editor, so the videos are a lot better. So make sure.
So he's done it for me. There you go. I even let it play out in full. So there's his own plug for his own show, right on time. I didn't know that was going to happen, just appropriate timing. So as the link to his YouTube channel's going up, I'm sure you can pick up all of those things from his information box, which you can find by going to his video. Go on, Chocolate.
He tells stories for Reddit.
So they got a whole bunch of well, they got a couple of key people that you know are in the comment section to, you know, kind of dissuade people from taking it legitimately. Then those people who don't take it legitimately, they might, you know, in a critical video say, "Oh, thank you, I appreciate this. I didn't understand what was going on with these flat earthers. Thank you for helping me out." Blah 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 blah. One day, this guy or Matthew Learns or whoever it is, they're gonna post a video trying to critique flat earth, and these kids are gonna troll them to death online. It's happening on TikTok.
Yeah, Eli, this ain't the only classroom that this is happening in. This is happening in classrooms all over the place.
Yep.
Make sure to check out that channel and please go support it as it is smaller and your support helps out even more. Let's get back to the story. So anyways, yeah, Brian is a little bit like, okay, bro, like what do I do here? Like legitimately, what do I do here? I just don't even know what to do. So
I think we got that.
So all the kids are standing up in unison like, we believe the earth is actually flat, like your information is wrong. And Brian's like, guys, like, why? And they're all like, well, we follow these accounts on TikTok, and these TikTok accounts are telling us that actually the earth is flat, and then...
Okay, all they're delivering to him is the source information. He's the one challenging it when it's not relevant. It should really be an onus that he has to fulfill. It's on him. Let's be honest. If he's going to say, I just feel it's necessary to correct you, so correct him. Don't ask him to give more information when he's already fulfilled the task. Oh, you want to know more? All right, well, we'll tell you our source is TikTok. Not actually a source. It's like a conduit for the information provided by the people on TikTok. But there we go.
And then another thing, real quick, it's like, if you think about it, TikTok is in a really precarious situation because on one hand, they could start censoring people like YouTube attempted or is attempting or did or whatever. But if they do that to children that they just gained as an audience, that's going to rub them the wrong way. They cannot censor these children. They're going to have to figure something else out.
Right, they're even more fickle than I in that regard. As quick as they've picked up on TikTok, they'll dump it in a heartbeat if they feel that they're being wronged in some way and they can get what they want somewhere else. Yeah, kids are very fickle. With that, though, I'm going to say we will continue covering Connor Pugs in the after show. So if you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who tuned in, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
This happens ties into everything that we haven't spoken about yet. It's crazy. Like, this whole system is set up for, well, people like us to not challenge the authority.
That's what's up.
I'm glad these kids are stepping up. This is super exciting. They have hope.
Good show. Do you want to carry on with this Connor Pugs thing? I don't actually think there's going to be that much more on it.
Wanted to add to the
Okay,
end.
there's a lot of good stuff,
hold on, Ted.
Nathan.
Go ahead, Adam.
I just wanted to add on the end, that last bit is appeal to format fallacy or source fallacy, because the reason the information is incorrect is nothing to do with what the information which he hasn't questioned or challenged. It's because it's from TikTok. Something's true and correct. It doesn't really matter where it's come from and in what format it comes. That the information should be dealt with, not waved away with that's from TikTok, so it can't be true.
Agreed. Nathan, there's some key points. So save it for tomorrow. So you have three-parter on this because you want to finish the show.
Okay. I mean, there's only, 14 of 18 and a half minutes. So there is, there's probably at least 2/3 of a full live show in that. That's how long it takes us to cover this stuff.
Yeah, just get your mark on the minutes now so you know where to go.
14:23.
Got it.
Hey Nathan, yeah, but if you don't do the rest of it now, you're going to have nothing to do, possibly, and then you're going to end the live show in 10 minutes.
I've already ended the
So
live
we
show.
don't want that. I mean, the full show, the after show.
You guys have got to be better at keeping the conversation going. The moment I hear a bit of dead air, I am poised, man.
No.
Go and
You've
get
been
myself a
doing some
coffee.
sneaky. You've been saying we're going to extend the live show, and what that is it's just shortening the after show. We're on to you, Nathan.
Yeah, Neil pulled a kind of union meeting. That was his conclusion yesterday.
I'm watching you, Rosowski. I'm watching you.
Okay, well, I didn't realise there was rules to these things, but fine.
No,
Well, I
no
was gonna-
rules. You were just your name was just mud yesterday afternoon.
Man, I heard at least 4.5 seconds of dead air, which is enough time for me to queue up my camera. And if I get
Well,
that
that's
camera
your
queued
problem.
up,
You got a quiet computer. You're going to hear a lot of dead air.
I thought you was doing it to like provoke us, but then I realised you had ended the show and you'd gone.
yeah, I did, yeah. Now I wanted to get back onto graphics card overclocking,
Nothing.
which I did.
Now, see, Nathan, this is why. First of all, I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about this. Well, at least until 6 o'clock, because then I'm busy. But I'm probably going to be thinking about this all day. All the school kids that get out, I'm going to be wondering how many teachers, how many science teachers are having a terrible time right now. It's just, it's so tantalizing. Just the thought of an a-hole teacher just seething. You know,
Well,
there's
that's
nothing you can do.
That's the whole point of us replacing the refined arguments from our show that TikTok won't share. They'll just share the subject matter and everything else. But then if the way the show's heading is good, because these kids will hear about us and get the refined arguments. And that's why I said what I said a few weeks ago. We've got to gear this show for the generation that's going to take it to the next level, not the adults. It's going to be the kids.
Can you imagine a poor teacher when there's a mini Nathan Oakley in the classroom because he's up to date with the flat earth debate? Oh my goodness.
I don't think it's going to be those ones. Those ones are easy to deal with. Yeah, it's going to be the mini John D's, the mini me's, like the geeks that once they've got this information, I can imagine pestering my teacher, having learned, I loved chemistry, you know what I mean? And all the gas pressure laws and all that sort of stuff. If I'd have come across this, or just the concept of the ball earth with it, and I say, when you're even younger and you've got these things where, like little chocolate, when he's going, no, I'm just not having the fact that there's people antipodal and all this kind of stuff. There's actually resources there now that you're going to keep pestering your teacher. And I think, I'd say, this generation's already arming themselves. And if they're brazen enough to do it as a presentation in school.
It's weird. Just sorry to interrupt. I just want to say, in regards to chocolate, because I can very much relate on this level to chocolate's description, because I did the exact same thing as a kid with the bucket of water after being told what gravity was, right, chocolate? Well, at the time, we had no TikTok. All we were was left to our own devices after being given nonsense that I personally assessed as being nonsense on the spot. I went, okay, well, I'll have to come back to that nonsense when I've got a smarter brain to wrap my head around it. What I didn't appreciate at the time was I'd already wrapped my head around it. It was nonsense. I accepted it as nonsense at the time, but then went, okay, it's just a wrinkle in the explanation because I'm not old enough to understand it. That's how I explained it away. Well, if there's kids that do have access to a contrary point of view and can then suddenly affirm those just concerns, let's call them, that little chocolate in this example has had when he swung his bucket around and been told what gravity isn't, in terms of what the teacher was taught at least, they'll have somewhere to go and find a resource very easily, right? The Gen Z kids. Well, that's devastating. It's another reason why I say, the floodgates are broken now. That's it.
Yeah, but if you go to
I'll
a
say
Catholic
something.
school, you ain't got a shot, because I just got sent to the back of the class. And
So did
trust
I,
me,
Neil.
they're still
So
doing
did
the
I.
same thing.
That was Adam's point.
I was
Adam
in a
saying,
Catholic school.
That's why I said it like that. If you're doing it attacking the teacher. You are easily dealt with, aren't you?
Yes.
But if actually you're part of the top set that's got good questions, yeah, and you're asking and you point out, it's very much more difficult, isn't it?
Right.
If I'm in a chemistry class and we've just gone through phases of matter and how they behave, and then I say to the teacher, "This is how it is. This is how a gas molecule behaves." Right then, why doesn't it behave like that on a ball Earth? What's opposing this gas behavior you just so eloquently defined?
Exactly.
You're not-
But in
Yeah.
that classroom, there's the kid that's never there because he wags off and goes to town and has a McDonald's and is often caught behind the bike sheds having a fag. That's a cigarette in the UK. That's not the kid that does well when he challenges stuff. That's me, by the way. It doesn't matter that you're getting good grades. You're still the little shit that doesn't attend the class and has to get in trouble and beats up other kids and gets pulled into the headmaster. That's a tyrant, me. So when that kid challenges the teacher, what happens? You get sent out. So when I asked these questions, that's what happened. I got sent out. And I did ask them. I remember getting sent out plenty of lessons for it. I hated school. Anyway, the point is...
Can I say something?
The point is that it takes someone like Adam. In my class, it's various kids like this, but there was one that sticks in my mind called Alex Pickles. You know, meek and mild kid, but very intelligent. And he had his hand up regularly. He knew all the answers to the questions. He'd done his study, did his homework. He had a much older set of parents that taught him well. So he did well in school. Now it's that kid, when saying in his polished presentation about a flat Earth, and starts challenging, well, no, your notion of gravity and Einstein aren't being displayed here. The notion that it's a force was debunked a long time ago because the kid's well researched, right? In that example that we just had, the teacher just lies to the kid. You're definitely wrong about gravity. What the only big that you've actually definitely got a contradictory education on is you're going to challenge him on that. Yeah, how telling. Yeah, because you're in cognitive dissonance. That proves it. But you know, it's the. I just want to reiterate Adam's point. Hold on. Adam's saying it's the kid that's a good kid. I assume you're a good kid, right, Adam? That asks those questions. That's going to make ground. You can't get away with just sending him out and nobody batting an eyelid.
How did it get past you, Adam?
I'll give you another example. I mean, I quit A-level physics because I'm having these questions in my head and I don't know why I wasn't enjoying trying to learn it because it wasn't making sense. I know now, but I can imagine when I was doing the drop ball tests to approximate gravity, seeing how long, and then if I had the knowledge and going to my physics teacher saying, "Sir, why are we doing this, which is Newtonian based, when for 100 and whatever years it would have been then, 90 odd years, 80 odd years, this has not been used and is not the way we describe it anymore." The problem that would create, because that's not what you taught. Yeah, you've already tacitly accepted it's round and you can be antipodal. You've not had an explanation, but you move on and you move on. But if you were able to put something that basic, which challenges the whole fundamental of why am I dropping these balls in something that's out of date and not even used and not a true description? Why can't I go to my fourth dimensional space time? Why aren't we there, sir? Why aren't we? You know what I mean? That is very destructive. Because fundamentally, it's saying that what you're learning is incorrect.
Right. And when it's phrased in that way to the teacher, in other words, why aren't we using the current rhetoric of Einsteinian fourth dimensional gravity? When it's phrased that way to your teacher who's teaching you to drop your balls or rig up a Cavendish or whatever they're teaching you, they have to then make an honest choice because the kid obviously knows, and you can't just get around it by saying, no, don't be an idiot, because he's just pointed out the contradiction of the fourth dimensional gravity that the teacher was taught, that the teacher damn well knows about. So at that point, he's got to either say, yeah, you'll find out about that when you go to university if you get there. You're not that great, so you probably won't. Don't worry about it. Or, yeah, you're a good kid, you know what you're talking about. Yes, there's fourth dimensional space-time, but part of the syllabus is to learn about this, because part of the notion you may learn in university, and then lie, will come from this. So that the kid just goes, oh, right, okay. You know, but at some point, the teacher's got to lie. There's no two ways about it in this set of circumstances, like the teacher did in the story.
Oh, man. that's a very, very sticky situation to be in. I can see teachers not being tactful. Like they're going to be teachers that give the appropriate response. I think that's the most appropriate response a teacher can give, without others going. They might murmur a little bit, go, but it's like respectable. It's like okay, fine. But they're going to be teachers that are going to body slam that kid because they feel like they look stupid and they're being challenged. Because that's what happens in America anyway. You got like loads of videos of teachers just like body slamming kids and stuff.
I'll give you another example at higher education where I did this. So I'm in first year titration classes doing my degree.
Talking to you, Mike.
And I've got all this titration, just like calculations and mixing acids and seeing how much you put in. And then it's part of it is just to get repetition of precision in your head. So you're weighing out really accurate amounts on balances and then just calculating the molar relationships. It's pretty repetitive. And in doing your mind wanders. So at this point, I'm thinking, where am I? I'm in Sunderland and I've got a different geographic position and weight is gravity, etc. So I go to the chemistry teacher and I postulate this all to him. Therefore, the amount I'm weighing, sir, is going to be different. And he went, Adam, this is chemistry. There's no such thing as gravity. There is only weight. Yeah. Remember that in this profession. Yeah. So he didn't then take apart the physics class and the astrophysics people, but he did point out it was nonsense and not relevant to your profession. It doesn't exist.
Same
Yes.
thing that the celestial navigator at Ready Hall said about people believing what they want about the Earth moving. That's so interesting.
But
And you know what else?
crazy,
Oh, no,
though?
that was the
Actually,
latter of that was the latter of my
Sorry.
examples, though, wasn't it? So he put his arm around you and explained it like it was. And in that example, shockingly, he didn't even lie. He just laid it out in the most truthful sense. It isn't real. As far as you're concerned, it doesn't exist. Right? So he was just honest.
We only have weight. We only have experience, weight. Whatever they do after that is mathematical. Remember that.
Yep.
Wait.
Never
who
a
said
truer
that?
word spoken. Every time Adam makes a really
and
good point,
Nathan,
three other people want to talk around what he's saying. And I want to focus on it and point out bloody Arwin and Adam today have been on fire. Just give some respect to how good they are today. Bloody hell.
Nathan,
Yes, Adam.
I would
Absolutely
agree.
couldn't agree more.
I
Where's
agree
Arwen at?
1000% because any teacher or professor with any ounce of integrity or moral fabric would at least dismiss a class, except for that particular student, pull them over and say, your argument was very, very legitimate. However, unfortunately, I am confined to teach the curriculum according to the protocol. However, I do agree with you, or I can see where you're coming from, just so that student doesn't go around thinking that they're wrong for the rest of their lives. Because teachers do have to, they are confined to teach a certain, curriculum, even if it's fallacious and it's a lie. But at least a teacher with some type of, integrity would pull that student over and say, I understand where you're coming from. I just can't, teach that. And if you don't mind, please don't disrupt the class again.
Right.
Because
I completely agree.
that's
And you can easily contextualize an atheist, for the sake of example, doing that when teaching a religious studies class. Yeah? In other words, they've gone through all the process, they've learned all the religions, they've got their degree, they've become a teacher, and they decide, well, I'm going to teach religious studies. It's the thing I've studied, even though I'm an atheist. That's what they do. And at some point during the religious studies class, a kid challenges it in the way that we're describing, right? But in the same, it could be even exactly the same way. When you're talking about Christianity, you decide to challenge it based on your understanding of a flat earth. Because for whatever reason, the Christian that's posing it has got a globe in it, for the sake of argument, just for the example. Right? Well, in so doing, you can imagine that scenario. Teacher waits till the end of class, says, just subtly, come here, just need a quick word with you. I realise you're saying that everything in this class is nonsense. Right? I get it. I respect your views. This is a syllabus. This is what you need to learn to pass the class. It's not really up for discussion or debate. You just need to learn. I don't I don't appreciate what you've done. I just need you to understand that in terms of what you're here to do. In other words, not what the teacher in the story we just had did. I just feel that I've got to correct you on that. But no, that isn't what's happening. That's not your responsibility as a teacher.
Both things happened to me. There's an echo of someone going. Remember my story when when I kept raising my hand and he says, "Look, I don't even believe it, but I have to teach it." So that happened in that class, and I said, "Fine." So that teacher was honest. He didn't criticize me or anything because I was the only one asking questions. Then when I was older, my mom pressured me to go to college. So I went, okay, I'll try it. Went to a local college, and there was, at this point I was a Christian. So I decided to take a religious course. So to the second part of your story, that happened to me. So we were in this religious course in college, and there was another Christian in the class. And there was 35, 40 students, I think, altogether. And there was only 2 of us that were bold enough to say we were Christians. Now, I'm sure there were, maybe a few others, but they were quiet. So the end of the term came. And by the end of that term, we were the only 2 asking questions because the teacher wasn't Christian, but he was teaching a religious course, and it was on the Bible. So it was specifically the Bible. He was not a Christian, but he was the instructor of the course. So every time we felt like he misrepresented a verse, we'd raise our hand. Well, the classroom finally had enough of us, meaning that other guy and me, and said, "Look, we're tired of you guys raising. We just want to get to the next class. You guys are slowing everything down." And the teacher said, no, they have the right. And so the teacher was really good, actually. So the end of the course came, and you could either do a written report or an oral report. So, of course, the only 2 people that did an oral public in front of the class report was that guy and me. And we chose different subjects that he had covered that time in the Bible, kind of. Well, we got A pluses. He never demeaned us. He was the perfect example of what you're talking about there. So I've experienced both of those.
Cool.
Respect to all you teachers out there in the trenches like us. You're not separate from us. We understand that there are some of you out there who are in a very, very crazy situation. Shout out to all of you. I respect you and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, I second that, and I'll reiterate what I said yesterday, which is to say that when I describe my blood boiling over teachers, it's not teachers. It's teachers who understand better, specifically the teachers who get involved in this discussion, come up against arguments they can't overcome, and then just engage in their own self-flagellation or cognitive dissonance, go around spreading their pain to others, whatever. Those are the people that get my disdain. Your average teacher I've got a lot of respect for. Like, people should. They're in a respected position for a reason.
So what do you think? Correct. I'm thinking about, so here's the thing about why Flat Earth is not going to die. Number one, because it's just the truth, so it's going to keep coming up.
Yep.
So they're going to have to figure something out where people forget about it and then they reintroduce it like Nathan always talks about. But at this point in time, the reason that it's not going to go away for the teachers is because why? Everybody makes references to the globe on a subconscious level. Only as a growing, as your conscious grows to understand that there's a larger conversation going on. Every time, a Netflix special that you watch has a globe in it, you're going to notice. Every time a teacher says, oh, global, you're going to notice. Every time there's anything, a globe in the classroom, somebody explaining gravity, anything that has to do with what we don't experience, the person who's privy to that is going to point it out.
Yes.
And the reason it's going to happen often is because they have to keep reinforcing it.
Exactly.
Which means it's going to keep getting it.
Perfect. Brilliant. And there's a scene in The Matrix where Neo has an explanation given to him by Morpheus about the original Matrix that failed. Because people were aware that there was a choice that could be made. So, although that was a prerequisite to keep it functioning, they had to hide that choice from the people in the Matrix. In other words, they had to let them have the choice, but make sure that they were only aware of it at a very subconscious level. Yeah? Well, the same is true for me and everyone else on this panel, because we're all of a similar generation. When we were growing up, we were unaware that there was another option. The globe reality was the only reality presented to you from birth. That's why it's presented to you as it's presented to you from birth, with your globe mobile dangling above your bed and your globe soft toy and your stories about globes in cartoons. That's why it's done in that way, because then you're unaware that there's another choice that could even be made. So the teacher's disbelief when he's like, you're trolling, right? It's because for him, in the way he's been programmed from birth, there isn't any other option that could even be considered. So therefore, when the kid's dead serious, he's like, I can't quite fathom this. Doesn't make sense. Surely he knows there isn't any other choice to be had. Well, the floodgates have broken. The kids aren't aware at a subconscious level that the world as they're presented it might not be the world as it is. Once you're aware that there's a choice to be made, you assess things on a very different standard. And like Eli's just said, suddenly you're assessing it every time you see something that's trying to indoctrinate you with it. It has the reverse effect. The globe in the picture doesn't suddenly make you subconsciously realise that you're on a globe so that it exists in your mind's eye always through repeated indoctrination. It suddenly makes you question it again. Well, the kids currently get this choice. It's offered up to them in their social media and their video intake on an, by the sound of the teacher, hourly basis when they're at school even. So as a result, they're not constantly bombarded and flooded with the notion that is programmed into them and hardwired into their brains from birth that they are just on a sphere. Therefore, when it comes to the fallacious proposition of begging the question of a sphere, you do it automatically. So when we started this show and we're like, these people are shills, they just work their way through begging the question fallacies automatically. No, just normies, because they can't think of it in any other way. Well, if the Earth's a sphere, then we're going to have blah, 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 blah. You've just begged the question, mate. Well, of course I have, because we know we're on a sphere. Yeah, that's begging the question, mate. Yeah, but why wouldn't I when we know we're on a sphere? Yeah, that's begging the question. Because that's all we, collectively on the panel, that's all we know or knew. Very different for the current generation. So yeah, it's inevitable.
So you just unwittingly like created a bridge between the things that I'm discussing and you know flat Earth, because you just said, and again I had 24/7 on fire because for whatever reason. I'm not going to say his name. I really don't like the guy, but you know what? I'm not going to dog him out like that. But there's this guy. And the thing about him is, I'm just telling people, hey, do you know that there are two choices in America, but 99% of people choose option A? And for whatever reason, this causes an argument. And I'm like, I'm not making an argument. I'm just telling you what exists. And I kept telling him, bro, I'm just telling you there's a choice. Why are you arguing with me? And when you said what you said, well, people just don't realize there's another choice. I just realized, oh my goodness, that's what the problem is.
Yeah, but that's a
Like, when
dying
you don't have
generation.
a
As much
choice-
as I hate to describe myself as that, but that's what we are, right? So the fact that it was successfully indoctrinated into us in the 80s and 90s and 70s is kind of irrelevant, because that's not the world we live in anymore. You know, the kids aren't being successfully indoctrinated from birth anymore, and clearly haven't been from about the year 2000 by the looks of things.
I'm curious to know, Nathan. I watched to the end. Did the narrator of the video, whom you criticized and broke down as being a liar, did he prove that the child, by a quote or a soundbite, that the child said anything about a saucer or a plate? because
No.
that's the part that enraged me more than the teacher who's just doing his job and afraid to go up against the grain. That guy, for him to come out his mouth with less than a minute entering the commencement of his video to pretty much slander the child was what really pissed me off. So, you know, so many words. I mean, really pissed me off.
It's because it's a reflection of
'Cause I'm
what we
thinking
deal with,
how
isn't
somebody-
it? It's a reflection of what we
I'm
deal
thinking-
with, Theros. So,
Yeah.
immediate straw man. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
familiar.
Because I'm thinking that being my child who knows the knowledge and the truth. And I tell them, don't go back and forth. Don't spoil everybody's tooth fairy and Santa Claus. You know better. But I can see if my child gets older and he decides or she decides to do that, and a teacher does that, or an adult does that, and I find out, I'm gonna lose my temper. Because you don't call my child a liar and don't put words in my child's mouth.
Right.
Do not do that. Just say you disagree with the child, but don't start embellishing stuff in order to make the child seem to be a liar or a troublemaker or a disruption in the class, or you know.
But it would
know
annoy
what I'm
anybody. That's not like it's an unreasonable or abnormal standard that you've got there. You know, if I suddenly start saying, well, you, D-Rose, like to say, insert any statement you haven't said here, end quote, you're going to be pissed at it, aren't you? Because you haven't said it.
Exactly.
In my relationships with people who have different religious beliefs, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, we've never had a problem. They let me say what I say. I hear them what they say, and based on how we have arrived to those decisions, we all stay who we are. And I've never had friction with those that I've run across when you treat them with respect and then say, well, here's what Christianity states, if I'm allowed to say it. And they allow me. And then they say, well, can we say what I go, yeah, please do, because that's how I'm going to learn. And so the differences of these things, I remember one time with this Muslim guy, he was apologizing to me for the World Trade Centers. I said, why are you apologizing to me about that? I go, you didn't. I mean, you know, he thought all that stuff, the whole story behind. So he's coming from that reference point. So I won't go there. But let's just say he's apologizing. I said, why are you apologizing? He says, well, I'm from Morocco and I'm Muslim. And I just want you to know I don't feel that way about you. And I said, I've known you for months now. Why would you have been the consummate gentleman? Why would I ever think you want to kill me? I mean, so it's like, you know, it's just amazing how people, if you like, I'm so comfortable in my Christianity that I'll listen to anybody about anything pretty much and want to extend the discussion to the microscopic level if they allow me to. But a lot of people just get, you know, triggered. Like this teacher, his religious belief is heliocentrism, and he had to reshape the conversation by using words that really tell us more about him than the kid saying the earth is flat, because now the earth is a saucer. The earth is this, the earth is this. And so now come the little, you know, other words that allow you to see the teacher has the problem with another worldview, because he's not comfortable with his own.
Well,
That was
the teacher
good.
has.
That was good.
The difference is the teacher has a belief. We don't have a belief, and that's the difference. They have maths, we have measurement. That's what defines us. And that's the problem that they have. No matter what they do, they can never come up with measurements to support their claim. There's no geometry.
No, well said.
Somebody said, go on.
No, well
Somebody
said.
said, but they have calculations, right? They said, but don't they have calculations? I said, well, in order to have calculations, you have to measure an area or some kind of dimension first to base calculations on. They don't have any measurement, like you said.
Yeah, that was well said by Brian. But in this recording with the teacher and the kid, it never got to that level. The kids need to know these arguments.
Well,
the
that,
trouble
that's
is,
what I was
Uncut too.
thinking. That's what I was thinking when I heard the guy describing the teacher, putting himself in the teacher's thoughts. Like, well, what am I supposed to do? What does he do? What does he do? He tells the kids where the measurement of Earth curve came from. He tells the kids how you can have gas pressure without a container, with empirical evidence after that. But why can't he do that? What's the problem? I don't get it.
Well, he
can't.
he can do it. See, he can tell the children that Earth curve was measured. He can tell the children that you can have gas pressure without a container because he believes that Earth curve was measured, and he believes that gravity is a force and holds all the air too outside of the globe. So, hang on. He will believe it if he needs to believe it. He'll switch between a force of gravity and bending of space-time. All these numpties do this, right? They don't realize, like, within their own model, it's moved on. But the point is that this teacher will say that with conviction because he will believe, just like refractive curvature. Now, he's not refractive curvature, but just like John would have believed that there was a measurement. And when he found out there wasn't in January 2020, he said he almost got sick. So that's the problem. There is a belief out there that these things are actually real. So this teacher is probably going, even though he's an a-hole, he's probably going, I mean, are these kids that uneducated? This has all been proven, you know, in his own head. In his own head, Eratosthenes did XYZ. Al-Biruni did XYZ. You know, Newton did XYZ. And he doesn't have his facts correct. I guarantee if any of us sat down with him, his facts concerning his own model and the timelines and everything would be all over the place. He'd probably add in 9.81 meters per second squared as part of Newton's law of gravitation or whatever. You know, he wouldn't even have that correct.
I think you're right, Brian. I think you're right. They think they have the answers,
Keep ignorant.
but they don't.
Sorry, Nate.
If I can just,
I'm
go back
disagreeing
to,
with you.
I'm pretty sure this was Eli's point. There we go.
go back to Tam's analogy there in terms of it, meeting people of different religions. I think this is the trouble, right? It'd be like you welcoming in a load of Satanists, yeah, because fundamentally, as Brian said, all the underlying tenets of their religion we challenge, and they're not able to rebut. So, being sympathetic, you can see that we come to destroy. We bring the sword. Do you know what I mean? To their religion. So I'm not sure how. If they've got half a brain, that they know they've only. It's fight or flight, isn't it?
That's why we got share your pain.
Yeah. But they've got nothing to fight with.
And with that, I'm
The
going to say a
issue-
huge,
Can
massive,
I say
enormous
something?
thank you to both Discord and YouTube
Oh,
channels.
come on!
I'm only joking.
You snake,
hell,
Nathan.
man?
Nice,
You
got 'em.
snake.
Nice.
Now you're playing with our emotions.
You got me, Nathan. You got me. But I just wanted to point out that, I don't know, teachers don't get like protocols within their teaching to actually deal with flat earth other than just saying no or sending people out of the class or something, right? So as soon as any kind of teacher out there in official capacity for schools and all that is going to engage with it, they're completely on their own. And guess what happens? Yeah, they're totally unprepared. And that happens
but
every
they
time because they're teachers. Like, what teacher out there really knows about flat earth and can keep it a perfect secret and never get like insane in life because he has to teach something that he knows is wrong, and right? That wouldn't work. So they always end up
But don't they have
becoming
that teacher
dumb.
that says they
looking dumb.
don't they have the teacher that teaches kids how to deal with flat earthers?
I actually like that point, Arvid, because it's like, okay, so at what point does it become serious enough that they have to include anti-flat earth rhetoric in the curriculum? Like,
When
this-
teachers
like
out
when they
there-
have to warn the teachers, like, this is something that's going to come up because it's crazy and it's going to come up. But so
here's the
you have to
point.
deal with it.
They can't.
ahead.
It can't work. You know why? Because the teachers can't really know about flat Earth, the actual arguments, because then they know that they're teaching wrong things, and then they're going to get depressed and quit.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter because if it gets
Yeah, it
serious
does.
enough, we're more. But hold on, if it gets serious enough, where too many kids are going to school and bringing this up, it's gonna come to a point. Like I'm trying to stand by your point, which is when do they actually have to include anti-flat Earth rhetoric or arguments in the curriculum? I think it'll happen pretty soon because what you like, listen to what you're saying. These teachers don't know how to react.
Well, that's only because they themselves go and look out, what can I do against the flat Earth? They literally Google probably, oh, a kid brought up flat Earth, I have to do something with this. Oh, I'll find all the proof of the globe. And then they get like, okay, this stuff. Maybe one of them will search out, what can I do against flat earthers? Guess who's going to pop up? Anti-flat earthers, all their tactics. That's how they then do that. They basically take that as a curriculum method, but they don't understand it, right? They don't know how freaky it really is.
Yeah, but what about my grandson? My grandson, this was over 2 years ago when I was talking to him, and he said, oh, my teacher told me this was going to happen. So they're very aware, more than you think.
Whatever you pay attention to grows. So if they pay attention to Gen Z or whatever they want to call the kids nowadays who are talking about this, it will grow. It's very simple. Look at the school system now in America. I don't know, in England or anywhere else. They've got all kinds of classes on gender, and they are pre-programming our children to think that they can be any sex they want to be. It's up to them, even though they may have a penis or a vagina, they're not a man or a woman. So the whole point is this corruption in teaching and changing what everyone knows. I mean, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, but now that is in question in schools, and the teachers are getting state backing and federal backing that they don't even have to contact the parents, and they could whisk away the kids and give them all these drugs with testosterone and other things, and without informing on the parents. And then you got the pornography in the school. This is where our school system is gone. So now you're being onto this system that's already stole our kids with false teachings about gender, and already for a long time stole our minds with the one globe model, and all of a sudden flat Earth becomes an issue. Well, as this one video shows, the kids are saying, no, we want the truth, and the globe doesn't make sense anymore. And so this is why the FED show and the FED panel, of all the flat Earth content that's out there, it sticks to the housekeeping questions, sticks to destroying that initial lie that allows all these other lies to exist. Because they can't have a saucer. They can't have an equatorial plane. They can't have a flat, straight baseline. It's impossible. If they do, just like that quote I read yesterday, Nathan, well, it would mean design, and design means a creator, so the evolutionists can't accept that.
Well, what would be funny is if what Arwen says comes true, which is likely, which is very likely, because that's what these crazy people do. What would be funny is when they show Blue Marble Sciences gas pressure with 3 containers to prove it gas pressure without a container in class. That'll be funny when they have to go to YouTube to find that numpty in his stupid video, and the kids in the class laugh the teacher out of it and say, what, with your 3 containers? You know what I mean? That is going to be hilarious.
That would be a disaster for the teacher.
Yeah, it will be a disaster for the education, because, just 1 second, what's going to happen is you're going to have teachers out there who are going to go, hang on a minute, I can't teach this. This is total nonsense. Do you know what I mean? You're going to have teachers who are just going to go, I can't hold a line on this. This is total nonsense. Or if they're teaching it, they'll be teaching it in a sarcastic manner if they're forced to do it. And it's just going to it'll destroy them. The globe will start crumbling more than it ever has at that point.
Yeah, but teachers will get fired though if they teach these kind of things, like, because they're not allowed to. Like, the director will come knocking on your door, like, we got a problem. We got complaints here about the curriculum you've been teaching. You gotta go, or never do this
You look
again.
at masturbators, that's not what they're doing. In masturbators, I posted something. So your student believes the earth is flat, and they give you a whole lineup. And this is from Harvard.
Yeah. Look what happened with Danny Faulkner, who's an astronomer, and he had to deal with this gas pressure issue. He first said that flat earthers, all they do is just YouTube something and blah, blah, blah. Then when it came to the gas pressure without a container, he went to YouTube and got that video that Brian is addressing with the 3 containers and the 40-foot pipe with just the top open, but the bottom and the sides were there. So here's Danny Faulkner, who's an astronomer, who wants to explain how we have gas pressure next to a vacuum, and he uses Hillbilly video channel and shows 3 containers with pressurized gas. That destroys Danny Faulkner right there. No more conversation needed. But my question is, and I think you all know the answer, is why did he do that? He did that because he has been teaching astronomy for 40 plus years. He's written books on it. He's new to flat Earth, and flat Earth destroys every book he's ever written on astronomy with the conclusions and the baseline points, pun intended, of what it is. A globe in the space somewhere rotating and all this with all these different gyrations, and the stars never move from year to year. It's over for him.
It's going to be funny. Like, that was my point. When they have to go to YouTube, which they will, after putting down the likes of YouTube and TikTok for years, they're going to have to go to YouTube. They're going to have to, and maybe even TikTok. They're going to have to go to these resources because that's where the information is going to be. And who are they going to find? A lot of idiots making videos like Blue Marble Science. And that's what they're going to find. And that's going to be their evidence. You know, because just Adam is going to just presented this thing. I just want to say this thing. So your student believes the earth is flat. No, we do not have a belief. We have a knowing. We have measurements. We have physics. We have geometry. We don't have any belief here.
I don't think I dare scroll down.
Nice.
Nathan will just explode.
What do you want me to do?
No, what? So this is what Neil's posted. I'll do it. There you go. Have a read.
Can you read it out for me?
Okay.
It's in Master B, Nathan, I think.
I'm driving.
It's too small. I can't read it. It's too small.
Okay.
What you do is pull it up from Master B, Nathan. You start reading it. And sorry, Adam, you do it.
Someone else read it.
I'm happy to read it.
Please.
Science denial has become rampant and deadly in recent years, threatening individual health, community well-being, and life of the planet's environment. As educators, we know that teachers have a significant role in addressing this growing problem. Teachers can mentor the next generation of scientists, and they can also nurture an appreciation for science and instill regard for scientific expertise, regardless of students' chosen careers. Science can contribute to contemporary problems, great and small. Such work is enhanced when members of the public understand and trust the scientific expertise.
Can I pause you here for a minute? Can I comment real quick? That beginning statement already is I'm going to use, because they're trying to bring global warming, climate change, and the vaccine and label it with science as they're addressing flat Earth, all in one right there.
So they're bringing science denial into it, which is the first thing
I'm saying that's the whole point. The whole point is don't argue about the globe warming up. That's science. Don't bother about the vaccines that are blah, blah, blah. That's science. It's settled. They're using that moniker of science again.
An immediate red herring, straw man, fallacy tactic.
Adam, did that what you just read? Did it say trust? What did it say about trust again?
It said, science can contribute to contemporary problems, great and small. Such work is enhanced when members of the public understand and trust the scientific expertise, not science, scientific expertise.
Isn't that interesting? Trust. What was that article? What was the article that was named "How to Debate a Flat Earther"? What was their main point? That flat earthers don't have trust. That's curious. We're supposed to trust scientific. We're supposed to trust the scientific expertise as opposed to the empirical nature of validating any type of experiment. That's interesting.
I think you've used the word that's not in this document. Empiricism.
Yeah.
And
What you
then
gonna say, Neil?
and then you have,
I want to go after you.
No, I
and
just
then
said
you
it
have
gets
someone.
better as you read it. And this is recent. This is October 2022.
Yeah, like so. I'm gonna let you go, D Rose, real quick. I just wanted to say that you know, it's crazy because you know, we don't need the same kind of person. We just need the same fundamentals. But everyone that understands the fundamentals, there isn't like just all Eli's out there once you understand the fundamentals. No, I'm not going to reach everyone. Chocolate has a way of reaching people with the fundamentals that he understands. Neil, same thing. Adam, same thing. I'm not going to be able to reach the people that Adam probably talked to wouldn't even talk to me. There's no like where's the interest at? How does that mean? You know, so it's like the fact that we can all go out and be little Super Saiyans is, I don't know, man. Today's just a good day. I'm definitely going to download this show because this is one of the most amazing shows of the year so far. And it's like the thing we didn't know and was always echoed to us is that the truth will set you free, and the truth can slice through anything. But we just found out because they lied so bad, all we got to do is tell the truth and be public about it. That can take down entire industries. I can't believe it. I can't believe how powerful you really are as a listener sitting down in your seat right now. Can you? I can't hear you answering that, but I know you're shaking your head.
Hell yeah.
Exactly. And it goes back to what I said the other day. It seems like there's like either these algorithm automatic bots that come in to make comments on the YouTube on the show that never show up on the Discord. Like I'm gonna throw his name under the bus. Not you, John, of course, but John S. Smith, who made a comment after this video about the teacher going back and forth with the student. He says literally, we have the maps, the measurements, and the logic as a reply to, I forget who it was, somebody named Flatten the Edge, I guess, had said, empirical science proves this, that, and that, for our assertion. And he says, and he said, we may not have the science, but we have the maps, the measurements, the model, and the logic. And it's like, and he says, what does flat Earth have? It's almost like, I don't know. It's either like this guy is late to the party, late to class, that he has not known that we've already
everything he just read, we have.
That's what I'm saying. But it's almost like, that's what I'm saying. Is this an algorithm like AI doing this? That they have just launching out troll comments that are just preposterous? Or is this person really serious?
When hang on, I didn't see that, but I want to respond real quick, and it'll be quick. When you have to use 90 degrees for your maps, your measurements, your angle to stars, just the fact that you have to use 90 degrees, which requires a horizontal, a perpendicular, you've just destroyed the globe surface.
Yeah, they can't. They can't outpace us. That's what we're seeing. Nathan, because of this show, and because of the people that he's captivated first, us, and then us playing a role in captivating others, is legitimately the reason that we, on such a small scale, are outpacing the algorithms or whatever it is. That's all you're telling me.
I don't want to brain on your parade or anything, but you do sound like somebody pitching a pyramid scheme. Just want to point that out.
No, he's
Well,
not.
A pyramid scheme has a definition.
I don't think Eli's argument sphinx at all. I think it's pretty good.
That was good.
Third one.
Yeah, but anyway,
You just need to give it some thought.
There's a definition for pyramid scheme.
Well, finish wrapping it up. Finish wrapping it up, please.
Oh, wow.
You missed my point. You completely missed my point.
What you said, Brian?
I said you just need to give it some thought. THOCH.
Excellent, Brian. Excellent.
You couldn't hear it through the accent.
Well, I'm sure Brian got that from his mummy.
Oh no, Nathan's gonna end the show if they continue.
You're damn right I am. With that, I'm going to say, for real this time, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.